Hello, everybody out there. Welcome back to the next episode of Make Your Point podcast, hosted by me, Chris Henderson. Today, season 1, episode 5, we're going to talk about something that may change how the United States will govern police around the country. And today, we're going to talk about the New York Attorney General suing the NYPD. Uh, if this is the first time listening to my podcast, I thank you. I thank you for the listening. Please like it. Please comment if you have anything to say, and subscribe to hear when the new ones come up each and every day. I try to put out a new podcast on a new topic each and every day. So if you like what you hear, subscribe, comment, join the conversation because I enjoy a little back and forth because my opinion's not always right. Everybody's opinion's always right. But if we come together, listen, and talk, then we can come up with a good compromise, a good solution for the problems. And so today, we're going to talk about NYAG Letitia James filing a lawsuit against the NYPD. And the point I'm going to make today is that this lawsuit could change how police are governed around the United States. Right? So how this lawsuit right here will change how the police are governed throughout the entire country. Letitia James is the New York Attorney General, and she filed suit against the NYPD, the City of New York, Mayor De Blasio, the Commissioner, and Police Chief for failing to address long-standing patterns of abuse and not properly training, supervising, and disciplining its officers despite knowing that there was abuse going on. Now, what this stems from, back in May 2020, after the George Floyd murder, there was a lot of protests, of a lot of civil uprising that's going on throughout the country, New York included. And during this time, there was protests, peaceful protests, protests that had some destruction involved with it regarding property, with people getting hurt. There was clashes with the police. But during that time, specifically in this lawsuit, there were several hundreds of people that came forth to the New York Attorney General and filed complaints about the police officers and how they conducted themselves and how they were treated, and that they were violated with their rights to protest, and that they used excessive force to injure these individuals. Now, the lawsuit pretty much says that there's a lawsuit against the NYPD for excessive use of force and for making false arrests against those peaceful protesters. These people that came forth to the New York Attorney General had significant injuries and had major violations against their individual rights. So what had happened is, right, there was protests going on, and police, set up barricades. Police tried to subdue the protests when they got unruly, when it got too aggressive, or when Mayor De Blasio put in a curfew. They tried to send people home, or kind of forcefully push people off the streets and into the home to go by the curfew. But the methods that they were using and the justice, I guess it would put the self-justice on the streets that they were using, were in violations of those individuals and are abusive and are provided injuries to individuals, physical injuries to individuals. There were hundreds of people who came forward and with tons of evidence and show that there was dozens of examples of police officers using batons excessively or in not appropriate, scenario. There was tons of evidence of the abuse of pepper spray, the abuse and use of bicycles, and a tactic called kettling. There was abuse of legal, uh, illegal arrests to legal observers, medics, and other essential workers. So the police were kind of overstepping their boundaries. The police were a little bit rogue on more than enough occasions where that caused injury that to individuals where the New York Attorney General filed lawsuits. I think it was more or less on two occasions that there was this excessive pattern of use of abuse, but also that the individuals in that hierarchy to set up discipline, to train these officers to do better, to control these officers were not doing their job. So things would happen, things would get reported, and then that was it. There was nothing. And so this kept piling and piling on, and the attorney general looked at the case, looked at all these cases, looked at all these complaints, and then filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit seeks injunctive relief, a systematic reform, and the implementation of a federal monitoring system over the New York Police Department. And so what they have in evidence is that they have over 1,300 complaints on officers during these peaceful protests starting in March of 2020. They have thousands of evidence from more than 100 protesters, which include 50 times where individuals were struck by batons excessively or in the wrong case scenario. They have 30 times unlawful use of pepper spray, and then they have 70 times where there was excessive use of force for individuals protesting or just people trying to do their job, medics and other things like that. And so during the press conference, several individuals that filed the complaint came forward and told their story and told how what they were doing. They were protesting if they were getting off of work from hospital or whatnot, and they had clashes with the police, and thus they had significant injuries. Now, to make my point, how is this going to change policing and the monitoring police from the United States? Well, the remedy of this case, right? There's remedy in the case in terms of monetary, right? And then there's remedy in this case of putting in place a system where all these complaints can equal action, can equal discipline moving forward. And thus the last part where they're putting in a federal monitoring system. And how that's going to change? That means that lots of times there is an internal investigation, internal review of when complaints are filed against an officer, and then they do a internal investigation. They do an internal review. The complaints thing, depending on the complaints and whatnot, it goes on the records, and then the records sometimes depends on the unions or sealed and not used before. Discipline is unknown, right? I'm not in that system, so I don't know how aggressive officers' disciplines are when they file complaints and things of that nature. But from this example right here, it looks like the NYPD and the higher officers didn't do enough. And so by placing this federal system of monitoring over the NYPD, it's going to allow more accountability for the actions and the disciplines of these group of officers. And it's important because what we're trying to do, or what America is trying to achieve, is a system of accountability and equality for each and every citizens, police and not police, right? Police have a sense of immunity for what they do and for actions that they do. That's broader than those of American citizens, but we have a hard time in America filing lawsuits, filing complaints that lead to actions for officers doing misconduct or doing bad behavior during their time in duty. So I think that if New York and the the New York Attorney General puts together the system of monitoring in New York, then that can lead to other major cities and then lead to other smaller cities of having this federal overseer of its police officers disciplining, training, and when complaints happen. And so that's just huge. That's just huge. That it's allowing another system of accountability for officers and making sure that they do right closer to 100% than not. Being a police officer is a hard job. The training, the decision making, you're putting your life at risk all the time, right? The responsibility of having a gun, of taking someone's life if necessary, saving other people's life, arresting um, criminals and suspects, right? That is a tough job. That's a dangerous job, and I envy them for what I would say. I envy them, and I know it's hard for what they do, but for the ones that do it right, the ones that continue to uphold the oath that they pledge in being an officer, I salute them. I congratulate them. I support them. But there is officers that step outside their boundaries, that make mistakes because everyone makes mistakes in each and every job that you have. Make mistakes, but they need though when you make mistakes, you need to be held accountable for it, and need to have a range of discipline for that accountability for your mistakes. And I think throughout American history, officers have been um, less accountable for their actions that are outside the realm of their job responsibility, or that they misuse their power and abuse the people that they are trying to serve. Remember, police officers are civil servants, and in terms of if you call 911 emergency, they come out and help you. They come out and serve you and serve your needs. And a lots of times there has been a frayed relationship between the people that they serve and the police officers themselves. And I think having this system in place, if this system gets put in place of a federal monitoring system, hopefully that can um, increase the accountability of officers that make mistakes, officers that do wrong, or officers that don't uphold their oath. And then when you do that, that can help repair the relationship between police officers and civilians and people that they serve. And we can come together as one instead of being two different bodies. I thank you for your time. Once again, if you like what you hear, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment. Um, if you agree with what I say, if you disagree, put that in the comment. But I thank you for your time. This is Make Your Point Podcast with Chris Henderson. Till next time.